So partially, I'm looking at real yields. And so if you looked at gold's behavior in 2020, real yields were going down. And because gold's a very financialized markets, you have to look at the financialized version of real yield. So rather than just CPI, compared to yield, you look at what the treasury market's inflation expectations are, which basically compares the tipped yield to the normal yield, and you get that spread. And so that's kind of officially supposed to be the treasury market's, forward inflation expectation over a given period. But of course, the Fed is buying both sides of those bonds. So the Fed is, it's not a super clean market anymore. But nonetheless, gold has tracked that pretty closely. And what we saw basically is that, during the autumn period of 2020, real yields bottomed right when gold peaked. And then so real yields kind of started going sideways and gold started going choppy sideways. I think an additional factor in 2021, I didn't really see signs of this earlier, but in 2021, I think the big increase in the market cap of Bitcoin and maybe some of the other cryptos became large enough that it diverted fund flows that might have otherwise gone to gold. And so some of the continued weakness in gold in say 2021, when we started to get these pretty high inflation prints and gold didn't really seem to notice, I think basically if you were to add gold and Bitcoin together, would see that basically money flowed into that type of asset. And so if you go back and imagine a world where Satoshi Nakamoto never existed, these other asset classes were an option. You pretty much had gold and silver as your options in addition to any sort of other property. I think gold would have seen a stronger bid in 2021, but because this is the world we live in, now there's kind of this, it's gone through like a prism, and now there are multiple of these asset classes that investors can pick. And I think over time, a lot of them will not work out. Like I'm not saying people should go out and buy Dogecoin, for example. So I think that a lot of these will be filtered out. But I do think that some of them, like Bitcoin, have a reasonable shot at being around for a while. So I think we have to compare how those two kind of, you can call them kind of alternative scarce monies in different ways. They have different pros and cons. One's more portable. One obviously has orders of magnitude longer track record and other properties that make it unique. And I think we have to see how investors kind of take to those over time. So I do think a lot of the crypto market's a bubble. And it's funny because, so Bitcoin, for example, had very good performance for the past couple of years. But if you look at what happened in the broader crypto space, it was like way more. You had these tiny projects go up dramatically. You had meme coins, like literally coins that are made as a joke that become worth more than large banks in terms of market capitalization, like Dogecoin or even some of the others. And so I do think there's a lot of froth in that area. I don't really view a lot of froth in Bitcoin right now. It's going to have a volatile period for a while. But I do think that when you look out into the broader space, there's a lot of bubble-like attributes. A lot of funds, a lot of VCs have raised billions of dollars to market their products. And a big thing is we don't even have regulatory clarity yet. A lot of those, so for example, we know that Bitcoin is not considered a security. Basically doesn't pass what's called the Howey test, meaning that it didn't raise capital to have people go and then pursue a project and try to increase the value of that capital, right? So Bitcoin is classified as a property or commodity, and probably some of the hard forks are likewise. But a lot of the smart contract platforms are essentially securities. They basically look like equities in the sense that the teams raised capital and then went out and tried to make that project more valuable. But they didn't register themselves as securities. They didn't follow securities laws. We already had some entities get sued over that. And basically we have a lot of exchanges that the chairman of the SEC has said that most of them that because there's so many securities out there, a lot of them are carrying unregistered securities. And so I think basically we have to be prepared for the possibility of regulatory crackdowns in 2022, 2023. And that could really dent a lot of the crypto space, especially if it's already kind of in a, let's say it did top out or will top out next year, whenever it tops out, if it kind of eventually just kind of exhausts itself for this particular cycle, if you then lay a regulatory crackdown on top of that, that could get pretty brutal for that market. That could potentially give gold a bid. It could even give Bitcoin a bid to some extent, because that's the crypto that's kind of immune to those sort of, at least around the margins, kind of because it doesn't have that specific issue of being a security. And so I do think that there is a lot of risk in that space. And these things can reverse quickly. Like we saw, for example, a lot of these unprofitable tech stocks had a really good year in 2021. Some of them had a really good year in 2020. Some of them kind of got into 2021 also doing well, but they've rolled over very, very sharply. Some of them might even be oversold at this point. I mean, some of them are probably decent companies, and just the whole sector has been absolutely crushed because, volatility feeds on itself. And I think you could see a similar thing in a lot of these cryptos. A lot of them are already way off their highs. Some of the meme coins, for example, are already way off their highs. And I do think that basically there's a lot of risk for that space. And so one of the favors to gold would be that if that space does have trouble and you're in a negative real yield environment, it's possible some capital could flow back into gold.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race. You're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.